All right, guys, thanks for making it for the industry panel about innovation in the time of quarantine, presented by theartistpath.com. For those of you that are watching this after the fact, we've got some awesome panelists that I'm going to introduce. So first is Jack Preis, marketing specialist. Music and clients include Excision, might have heard of him. Festivals like Lost Lands and Bass Canyon Festival, Jam Legends, Humphreys McGee, Grammy-winning hip-hop artist Lecrae. Next up, we've got Tyler Morris, DJ producer Westend, with releases on Dirty Bird, Box of Cats, and Club Sweat, to name a few. Dave Gordoni, agent at United Talent Agency, and his roster includes artists like Bassjackers, Borges, Breathe Carolina, Cheat Codes, Morgan Page, Nicky Romero, Paul Van Dyke, and Beauz, which leads us to Johan Yang, half of the duo Beauz, touring producer DJs that have a handful, almost a dozen tracks on Spotify with plays within the multi-millions. So welcome, gentlemen.
Thanks for having me.
Hello.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, for sure. So we're going to just jump right on into it. The first question that we have for you guys is, how has the quarantine affected your realms of industry so far? We can go ahead and start. Why don't we start with the DJs? Westend and Johan Yang.
Sure.
Yeah.
I can start. So, I mean, obviously the biggest thing has been the closure of pretty much all, nightclubs, all festivals. So that's obviously been the biggest thing. I think we've seen a little bit of a slowdown, like on the music side too, a little bit. I remember I was talking to like my management at the beginning of this, and like they said that like Spotify streams kind of went down a little. People are like, streaming a little bit less. I mean, maybe that's picked up by now, but like the obvious big thing has been just the lack of like touring, staying put, which is something that's weird for DJs. We're always used to going to a new city every weekend. So yeah, that's definitely been the biggest.
That's weird. The Spotify plays going down. That seems counterintuitive. You'd think that being stuck at home, people would be like able to play music more and such. But.
Yeah, I think it was originally like people weren't commuting as much to work, and like that's where a lot of like listening came from. And I think earlier on, like March to like May, it was just such a shock to everyone that like music maybe wasn't the most the first thing that people would think of. I know personally I've not really been looking at new music as much, even though I probably should, because so much good music has been coming out right now. But I think there's just so much going on in the world that like music and partying and this like, this whole dance scene is kind of taking a little bit of a break on it.
Yeah, gotcha. Johan, how about you?
Yeah. I think he definitely touched on a lot of important points and a lot of the, sentiments that a lot of DJs have been feeling, especially on the Spotify side. The problem here is if live shows are canceled, then there's less reasons for audience to want to go and dive in to discover new dance music, because, the magic here is listening to it live, with your friends, hanging out in a very magical place. And without that, and without the reminder, I think the passion gradually is starting to plateau. And then, it's good that people start to listen to music just to listen to music, like appreciating music as it is. But as, Weston has touched upon, I think the hype of it generally is going down. And so a lot of producers have to diversify to make, to still make a noise in the industry these days, like without performing live, without having all these support.
Right. What about you guys? Jack, how about you?
Yeah. Anyway, thanks for putting this together, Brandon, and good to connect with all you guys. So yeah, with shows, not happening, there's way less for a marketer to market. So, I'm a marketing specialist. I specialize in creative brands who are really strong on brand, have really loyal fans, but maybe need to step up their marketing game to like where the rest of the internet is at on the digital side. So a lot of artists are seeing new creative opportunities. and some aren't. So some of my clients are scaling down a bit. It's given me a chance to expand my roster a little bit, take on new projects in and out of music, actually. But yeah, there's actually surprisingly a lot of opportunity out there with the right creative mind right now. So I'm sure we'll get into more of that later. But yeah, it's actually been an interesting time transitioning.
We'll definitely touch on that. Gordoni, how about you at United Talent Agency and for your roster collectively?
Yeah, it's been almost 4 months of working from home since March 13th for us at UTA and all of the agencies. I'm sure it's hard to book a tour when you can't tour. There are some opportunities popping up for certain clients in certain markets, whether it's the drive-in shows. About a month ago, we started to see some clubs open up with 50% capacity or capacity limitations, but then we're seeing those clubs get shut down due to the rise in cases now. And, there's a lot of tension in this country. You have, even with offers coming in for some of these drive-in shows, some artists aren't comfortable traveling yet. So we have to look into kind of new areas of revenue wherever possible, although it may be limited, whether it's streaming or, across other platforms at the agency. But, it's a wild, wild west for the streaming atmosphere. And I'm sure we'll touch on that later, but there are some opportunities out there for some acts. And, we've been trying to think outside the box at the agency and to deliver new opportunities.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the state of the union for everybody. And now that we know how it's hit everyone in the music industry, I don't want to focus on the doom and gloom of things, but rather where the opportunities might lie, where the creativity can be exercised, and if any, what are some positives or silver linings about this. So one of the things that I wanted to know is what can musicians do right now to still connect with their audience? We're not able to have those festivals where the music is tied to memories, but one of you mentioned that maybe people will listen just to listen now, instead of it being a background thing, something that's happening while you're doing something else, whether it's driving to work or working at your desk. Maybe some people get the chance to actually listen a little bit deeper. So where are the opportunities there, be it live streams or otherwise, for artists to connect with fans still in this environment? Anybody that wants to take a crack at it.
Yeah, I think I can start. Right now, it is true that the whole industry is suspended, and there are a lot of opportunities that the traditional opportunities out there that are normally being sought after are not there anymore. But I strongly believe that because of that, there's a lot of new opportunities that arise from it. For example, everybody may have known live stream is very, very popular right now, and it's getting really, really hyped up with everybody turning into a Twitch streamer, and then doing live streams. Insomniac is doing it, up to the biggest promoters like Insomniac, and the smallest DJs like some local DJs would all do it. And this is a great way to attract fans organically, and everyone started to take notice on that. And another way is virtual festivals, right? Speaking from personal experience, I graduated from UC Berkeley, and they wanted to host a virtual commencement, so I helped them host a virtual music festival on Minecraft. And hosting festivals on games is, would have sounded absurd back in the days, but with the like-minded people like Marshmello, Travis Scott going into Fortnite, it's proven that this market is kind of open and is developing, and that musical talents can infiltrate into the gaming industry. So this is something that I would have never thought before, and this opportunity would have never came to me until the pandemic. And so we threw a virtual festival, and then we had the luck to have performers such as Adventure Club, Sanfel, to come and grace our presence. So that's one way that you can express yourself, I personally think. And also another way is through TikTok, or really engaging with your fans, not just through your music anymore. You got to show your personality, show your day-to-day life. If you're stuck at home, it's the best time for fans to know who you are. Right?
Yeah, it's definitely an inside look they've never gotten before, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. How you go crazy at home and stuff.
Right. Yeah. No. That was Blockley Festival, right? On Minecraft
Right.
servers, and I personally checked that out. It was cool. I mean, if anything, it shows kind of what's possible. You know, it's definitely a creative way to still entertain and present, you know, a show during this. So, you know,
Dude.
those virtual festivals, the full-on immersive thing might not be too far off. But the Minecraft Fest was cool. All right, anybody else on that?
I mean, I'll step up and answer something. You know, I mean, the artists are having to think outside the box, whether it's streamed or ticketed stream shows. There with chat rooms within it. There are many services that artists are utilizing if their fans want to experience a show that way. So, I mean, you know, of course, what Johan said, connecting with your fans via social media, through, you know, the live streams. It's just some artists are, you know, are selling shout outs, you know, there's all sorts of new ways to create new revenue and also to connect with your fans.
Definitely. With all these live streams popping up, I think that the Minecraft Festival is a good example of how to like differentiate, because there's a lot of things going on in like the bedroom type of DJ thing. And, you know, first of all, it's awesome how the EDM community at large has kind of come together and just volunteered their time when there's no money involved, just to keep everybody entertained and to, you know, keep playing sets and everything. And the companies like Insomniac have stepped up and provided just this wealth of free content. So I think it's just cool to see there. One question that I have is, how might you differentiate yourself beyond doing the bedroom set, whether it's things like Minecraft or otherwise, if any of you guys have any ideas or experience, and what everyone's take on monetizing these live streams, because there is a lot of free content out there, and how you might do that, or any viewpoints on like ticketed live stream shows as opposed to just the free-for-all, and what you might need to do to make it worth the money, make it worth the ticket. So any thoughts on differentiating and monetizing live streams there?
I mean, I'll jump in quickly here. You know, that's going to be dependent on the artist. Every artist is going to have a different answer for this question. Some artists want just to get out there and connect with their fans and do as many live streams as possible. Certain artists that are touring in arenas, they don't want to do a live stream because they feel they can't put on the same quality of show. You know, you have other regional up and coming DJs that will do just about anything. There's a British DJ that will he's walking around with the CDJs and, you know, and doing a live stream that way, and he's getting a ton of views, and it's pretty cool to watch. I think his name's SWAT. You know, there's other DJs who are creating virtual performances within a world, like W&W did recently. Nicky Romero has one in a couple weeks that are really cool. Not everyone has access to something like that. Some artists are doing live streams, but only waiting for the fees to come. It's a new world that we're in, and it's still developing. So it's we'll see how things progress over the coming months and years. But it seems like it's here to stay, the live stream, and it's not going to take away from touring and live shows when they do return fully like they did before. But it's going to be another ancillary way for artists to connect with their fans through the performance.
Yeah, and for me, it's a digital marketing question too. Like, you want to apply the show model to an online environment, right? So you've got your GA tickets, you've got your VIP tickets, and maybe you've got a special like limited meet and greet type package. You can apply that model online. Maybe your VIPs get a merch package shipped to them with the show. Maybe your meet and greet, you know, special group of like 50 fans, they get to go in a chat room with you immediately after the show, and like, you know, they all get to ask a question, something like that. Like I know with some artists I've been talking to, like these kinds of things are on the table. And so, you know, maybe you're selling thousands of $10 GA tickets, but you're really making a lot of money on those upper tier packages, because your fans, a lot of them do still have incomes, and they do want to spend it on the things they love, and they miss music a lot. Like, don't take it for granted that like people aren't spending money right now. Like, a lot of your fans will.
Yeah, I think an interesting perspective on this is that you know, because so many live streams as opposed to shows, like most shows, like there is some ticket cost to go, you know, there always are some free shows, but I think with the live streams, there's always going to be so many for free live streams that it's going to be kind of interesting to see how the community reacts to the ones that are ticketed, because I think people are going to be like, oh, well, and there's really good live streams that are free too, with like really good production. And so like some people will probably be like, why don't I just go see this artist over here for free, as opposed to like having to pay for this one. I think from the DJ's perspective, you know, it's a lot of work to like do a live stream. Like I've done like a couple from my house, and it's like a full day thing. Like it really drains me. Like I rather go to play a show somewhere than do a live stream like any day. So like
get on a plane, get a hotel.
I rather do
go
that
play a show.
100%
Yeah.
than set up the green screen and like get everything right, because like that's not really my expertise at all. And it's like kind of like now I'm like a videographer and a director at the same time. And so like I think so. Yeah, you feel me. So like I think some DJs, you know, like I would love to get some type of, whether it's a ticketed thing or a donation based thing, like some type of like monetary return from that, because it is a lot of work for a DJ to, you know, even if they record something, whatever it is, to set those up.
Right. And if you don't have the gear prior to that, you got to go out and invest
rent
in
it,
everything,
buy it, yeah.
rent it, whatever, you know, get some production quality going. Yeah.
I just want to jump in to say one small thing. It also depends on how you want to brand yourself. If you want as many people to see your content, then free way is definitely to go. But if your brand is kind of like, you know, I think I heard of Lane A that was doing, you know, no phone at the festival, so there's no recording. This never happened. Like no one could have, like if you don't show up to this live stream, then no one could see any replays. If you put that kind of value in it, people, like, your fans might be like, oh, it's kind of like a movie ticket, and I'm okay to do that. You know, I'm okay to pay $5 just to see something exclusive that will never be on YouTube or Twitch again. That's one of the things I've been thinking about. Maybe like artists can go around that route, but I just don't know how much of a viable option that is to monetize in a sustainable way. So that's just an idea coming out. I'm sure that the industry is going to get more and more mature, and we can see if this is definitely, you know, a money-making way or not.
Does anybody have any experience talking about monetizing live streams? Are the companies, are the sponsors there for this yet? When you're going out farming interest, are music-related, you know, companies that want to target that demo interested in taking part, or is it kind of still in the air? Is it not proven yet?
They're definitely interested. I mean, there's a new app called B App that's Coca-Cola has thrown some money at, and they've been doing a bunch of live streams the past month or so. It's the app that we use for our live stream of Cascade at the Skywalk on the Grand Canyon, which was pretty epic. So I think you're seeing certain artists try and get creative with their streams, not only on the production value, but something like that, where maybe you can do a stream at this national monument of sorts, and it just visually looks stunning in that way. So yeah, there's definitely sponsors involved in these streams. Not all. I mean, the Insomniac streams, who get have a great wide reach through their audience for just about anything they do. There's no sponsors, but for others there are.
Yeah, I think Q-Dance this last weekend had something pretty cool where it was like Coke was the sponsor, but they also had like Europe's version of Postmates or something where you could just order pizza and like part of the like
Deliveroo. Is it Deliveroo? Is that it?
Yeah, it was cool. I checked it out for a few minutes last week, but you know, aside from sponsors, there's also the platforms themselves. Like Twitch right now is actually making deals with artists that I know, so that they will stream exclusively on Twitch. Now that's obviously not a pay-per-view show, but you know, if you can get paid by the platform, like money's money, right? So
absolutely.
Those can be good deals. Yeah, depending on the size of your brand and how much leverage you have. Those conversations are happening right now, for sure.
So that's encouraging. I mean, the fact that there's a market there, you know, it's not just being beat by the numbers of, say, putting in money into Facebook ads, having a captive audience like that, being creative, getting food delivered, sponsors being present. I mean, it seems like it's actually shaping up into some viable business as opposed to just like throw it out there for free to stay relevant. So that's great. But what other ways can artists, well, we'll start with artists, but side question, being one myself, can artists or promoters of the music industry in general augment their incomes? There's the live stream aspect. Might be getting some plays on Spotify still, even though it slows down. But what else is there? And Tyler, shameless plug here, but you are like our number one guy on the artistpath.com. So I'd be remiss if I didn't at least mention it. Your bookings are what? You've gotten 30 something bookings or so off the website by now?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't count, but there's a lot. Yeah. So like one thing I started doing was like production lessons, which has been like really good for me because a lot of my fan base are also like amateur DJs and like producers, bedroom producers. And like, especially like in the tech house world, like there just are so many people that, I'm sure in the other genres it's like that too. There are so many like up and coming aspiring producers that like there was a big market for, getting taught how to do things in Ableton, getting feedback on your tracks. So that's been like really helpful for me just to get like some extra cash in my pocket because I do this full time. And so like when the gig stopped, there's not much money there. Like, I think there's still an avenue of releasing music and getting, money from publishing and royalties from like music sales. I think for electronic music artists in the last, like, not for everyone, there's obviously exceptions, but in the last like decade, that hasn't been the primary source of income. I think now, like, managers are starting to look at that a little bit more carefully, thinking about like the publishing splits when they're signing music to record labels, thinking about like, other ways to make money from releasing music, whether having that featured in like, commercials, things like that. But like people have been getting creative, like people have been selling project files, a lot of lessons from different companies and platforms, master classes I've seen, just anything where it's like a DJ can give their skills back to a DJ and producer can give their skills back to the community. It's like something that you can, monetize potentially.
Yeah, great.
I'd love to talk about merch for a minute.
Definitely,
Merch.
definitely.
I forgot about that.
Big word that has not been dropped yet on this panel, merch. I come from the e-commerce world before music, and I can just tell you 99% of artists, especially in EDM, are not doing merch well, digitally especially. And this is a time where you should get that shit together, excuse my French, but like restock your best sellers, launch a new line. Is your website like decent? Does it have a Facebook pixel running on it so you can capture relevant traffic of people that actually want to give you money? Like really basic stuff that like any e-commerce business has like handled like that. But artists, like it's the furthest thing from their mind in my experience. And that's what I help people with on a day-to-day basis. And there's just so much red meat there. And people are online shopping now more than ever. If you look at Amazon's stock price over the last 2 months, it's like up 33%. It's almost $3,000. It's like people are just online shopping and they don't want to shop at Amazon, but Amazon makes it easy. If you make it easy by having dope stuff and you have loyal fans that are gonna come as soon as you announce you restock this or you just launched a new this, like get creative with it, but also do the basics. Like so much money to be made. It's incredible. That's my rant.
Yeah, and I'm really, really glad you mentioned that, especially coming with, the hard numbers, because when it's theoretical, that's all well and good. But, when you can say that it's increasing exponentially and measurably, right, then that's some hard data people can work with, and possibly combining that with live streams like we mentioned before. I'm just going to throw this out there from my perspective, but there's nothing wrong with branding your live streams either. You see some of these great festivals with fantastic branding and everything, and the flyer and the merch is tied in and everything. And I don't see, there's some of it, but it seems like it's not to the extent a lot of the time. Some of the companies are doing it right, Insomniac and others. But you can still have fun with creating an environment, even if it's virtual, and having merch to match. And now you've got something that can generate some revenue.
look, there's all, I'm just going to say one more thing on this. That's the like sexy side of selling merch, is doing it in a cool virtual environment. The non-sexy side that I work in is making sure that when I type in artist merch, artist replace the name, Beauz merch, like that your stuff comes up, the bootlegs do not come up, a nicely placed ad. I had a YouTuber client 2 months ago. All I did was implement Google Shopping ads, which is basically the little display images of their merch at the very top of Google search. When you see like the image of the merch and the price.
Sure.
They were already doing a pretty good job on merch, but we almost tripled their weekly revenue,
wow.
Just with that, like really basic stuff that, again, like all these e-commerce companies know to do, but YouTubers, musicians, creatives are like not doing. It's not that hard, but like you need to hire someone to do it, and it's yeah.
Johan and I will be calling you after this.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna hit you up too.
Yeah.
My phone's already ringing.
Leave the numbers in the chat right here.
Right. No, that's great though. Yeah, the non-sexy side is definitely probably the most essential, because you can put sprinkles on, but if there's no cupcake, yeah. Yeah. All right, guys. So I want to circle back to some of the income things, some of the business strategies in a bit, but I want to take a small break and ask, for, let's say, the music industry, but focused on artists, what's the best use of their time right now? I think that a lot of people are having, I know I do, where I'll be productive, but then there's some days that just seem almost futile, where you're just like, man, nothing's going on. It's easy to lose motivation. So how do you keep that up? And how do you stay excited about projects, music, getting out there in this type of environment? And what's the best use of your time while you're sitting at home?
I think first and foremost during these crazy times, to stay healthy is the number one thing, which is why we're all, quarantining or social distancing and wearing masks around public. That's first and foremost. But as far as everything else, it's kind of what we said and what we've already discussed thus far. Focusing on all these other areas of your career that you can improve on. Maybe spending all that time and extra time in the studio to create all the music. But there's other things too, to be careful with what you're putting out there to the world and being sensitive. Maybe you shouldn't put out on your social media that you're having a big birthday party at your house. It's probably not socially sensitive. So things like that are definitely important. You need to be cognizant of what you're putting out to the world.
100%. And some of the things that, because me and my brother were a duo, so we can do different things. One of the things that Bernie is doing and focusing on is growing his TikTok profile. A lot of times people say, TikTok is annoying, it's hard to do, or is pointless, but it is the fastest way to grow your followers. And it does not showcase your personality, but it acts like an amplifier to your existing profile. So what Bernie has done is focusing on one single topic, one single thing that he always does in the videos, and which is shuffling. And then he's gained 30, 40K followers in a month, and he's he's on track to get like 100K through that. It's not necessarily directly related to what Beauz is doing musically, but with this kind of engagement, with this kind of consistent fan base, he's able to attract new people who listen to our music, new people who support us. And eventually with his platform on TikTok, maybe we can, push our songs better. That's one of the ways. And the second thing I've been doing is, just thinking about different kind of opportunities that could work. At the same time, I also keep doing music. Music is what keeps musicians sane. Personally, that's what I believe. And whenever I do music, it helps me stay grounded. It helps me feel like I am actually doing something meaningful that I like. So please, if you are too tired from doing music, take some time off and relax, but never give up. Don't feel like music is such a burden if you can't put it out, because usually a failed project will lead to a successful project, and vice versa. And so it's just a cycle. So that's some of the things that I want to put out there.
For sure.
Yeah, I think personally, it's a tough question, and something I think artists ask themselves all the time is like, how can I maximize like the return on like my time spent? And like no one really has like the answer during quarantine or not. Like you never really know what's going to have like the best reaction. I think, some people maybe focus more on like social media, which it does take a lot of time. It's not easy to like, plan these things and do it, while someone else is maybe putting their bets on like, okay, I'm going to go into the studio and like try to write like a hit that's gonna like really like grow my profile right now. I think it's different for every artist. Like I don't love like to be super on social media. Like I am on it a bit, but like I rather like work on music, so I do that a little bit. I think echoing what was said before about like staying healthy, I think like staying mentally healthy is also like really important, because if like you're not in a positive mindset, which is very easy not to be like today, it's going to reflect on your ability to create, whether that's music or social media or just do anything online for your fans. I've been spending a lot of time like fishing and doing things that I just like personally love to do, because I find that like when I can be happy myself, I write better music, I'm more creative and things like that. So I think mentally staying, as healthy as possible has been really important.
Definitely. I'm curious because in addition to the quarantine, we've got probably one of the largest civil rights movements ever in history, American history. So I know the industry, we all participated in Blackout Tuesday, where we silenced our social media for a day to let the messages that are important take up the bandwidth and get out there and flood the feeds and the timelines. Some people did a little bit longer. Where do you think artists and the music industry's place is in this environment? The appropriateness of pushing things, your brand's place and your personal approach in all of your businesses to what's going on in the world right now, because we're sharing space on social media with things that are,
Yeah.
extremely important.
Totally. My first thought is that you really just have to walk and chew gum in moments like this. There's so much to be said. There's so many issues that encompass all this social justice and racial justice that's going on right now. Your fans want to see that you have taken a stance and taken an action at the very least, right? Like, and I'm sure, we're a few weeks out from when it was like really hot on social. So I'm sure that opportunity, hopefully you took advantage of it. Going forward, though, you have a business to run. Your music is a business, and you do have to keep promoting your business activities on your channels. But I think the hope of the movement is that institutions and industries who are not directly connected to race still acknowledge race. Work these issues into your messaging at times, both explicitly and implicitly. Like, if you're booking a show, like make sure there's diversity on it. Like, you don't have to come out and announce and say, we made sure there was diversity on the lineup, but like, just do it. Like they just, and people want to see those kinds of improvements, and the dark side is maybe you get called out for not having that diversity on your lineup,
Sure.
And not that you want to do it from your heart being in the right place, but I think going forward, it's just about like showing that we've acknowledged the moment and changed our actions in a tangible way.
Sure.
Yeah, I think musicians are supposed to spread positivity, at least in my point of view. Everything we do, the music we make, the messages we send should be positive, and it should benefit the society because we're public figures. I don't encourage, like getting tangled into specific issues, but I definitely encourage using your platform to spread the best and positive messages, regardless of what that is. And if you believe that your message is positive and it's going to change people's lives, it's going to better people's lives, then you should do it. You know, there's always going to be opposing voices. There's always going to be hardships. But as long as you're going out there and reaching to the right people, spreading the right messages, I think, you know, musicians taking a stand, speaking up is correct.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think definitely like not having a say on this, it really shows something about, you know, your brand. And you know, especially over the last month, we've seen brands kind of get called out for not doing enough, especially like, you know, the bigger ones, the ones that are really like gatekeepers in the industry, like they have I think a higher obligation than, you know, a low mid-tier DJ who obviously wants to help, but they're not the ones like booking festivals and, you know, signing tunes to a record label. I remember like one thing was like Dirty Bird, they had some message, I think, regarding Blackout Tuesday, or it was like some kind of text post. And one of my DJ friends, Omnam, who's like a big part of that record label, he called them out, and they kind of like went back and apologized and were like, you know what, you guys were not doing like enough for this. Like, we have a big influence. We need to be doing more. And I think like in the weeks following that, like they set up like a scholarship so that they could take on like more diverse like producers and kind of help bring them up. They did like a big donation to some charities. So like, I think it's on everyone, but especially those gatekeepers, those like big industry titans in the music industry. They really need to use their power for good here.
Yeah, the people that can move mountains should right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, with great power comes great responsibility. Where did I hear that? Spider-Man. Okay. So I think for one of our last questions is, how do you guys see the industry post-quarantine? And there's two main subjects here, both in, you know, we touched on the live streams, we touched on some of these different augmenting your income in different ways. What do you think is going to stay? What do you think might get bigger? So what's the future look like after this? Are there any seeds that are taking root right now that might, you know, start really growing into some massive presences later on? And do you think also that if there will be a massive explosion in new talent because of the rare circumstances of people being able to, you know, nurture their dreams by just having the free time of being at home, things like that? So
you can jump in and touch on some of that. I mean, I think we're living in an age, even pre-COVID, that there's been an explosion of new talents. I don't see that changing per se. I do think it's going to be more difficult for developing artists to you know, come and tour, especially during the correction period or whatever you want to call it, after which we get back to touring. You're talking about promoters, venues not being open for 6, 12 months, 2 years, however long this thing goes. They're going to want to limit their overhead, limit their risk, only go with artists they know are a proven commodity. So I think there's going to be a time where it's difficult to break through as that new artist.
Sure.
They're not wanting to take risks. I mean, you can see with what Live Nation's already telling people, you know, they're going to try and do as many door deals as possible for touring artists. And that may not have much of an impact on the DJ culture for artists that aren't touring in hard to get rooms. But I think it's going to become more difficult. So I think they need to get creative and use this time to touch on the other revenue streams so that they can build their career in other ways collectively. You know, and I think it's smart. There's some things that are happening now are going to be around for a while, and they'll continue to develop, like live streams or like the masterclass stuff that Tyler's been doing at the Artist Path. I mean, there's all these new ways of creating revenue and to connect with your peers, your colleagues, or upcoming talent. And I think that those things will continue to blossom.
So aspiring artists that watch this, don't sleep, because I agree that, you know, if your town had X amount of venues before the quarantine, some of those aren't going to make it through. Some of them aren't going to be able to pay the rent. We're seeing restaurants and different brick and mortar businesses close because the overhead is still there. And So you're going to have even fewer venues to play than there were before. A lot of promotion companies aren't going to make it through, things like that. So you're going to have a more narrow, array of places and events to play. And those events are going to be very much clogged up by the sure bets and makeup plays. All the tours that had to be rescheduled, all of those are going to get first priority, right? So just to kind of let everyone know what they might be looking at after the quarantine is really done, and as states go through phases and open up, it's going to be difficult. So don't wait to start trying to reach a crowd now. If anything, now might be a good time to build anticipation for your first play ever, and continue to build your brand. So I think, thanks, Gordoni, that's good insight.
Yeah, I think just to I'll go quickly. To echo that, I agree 100%. I think one thing that's going to be really interesting, or that at least I predict is going to happen, is it's going to be the rise of like the local scene. It's going to be huge. Like I know that like my first show back is not going to be in California. I live in New York right now. It's going to be somewhere here. So I think that's going to be interesting for a lot of like DJs that don't necessarily live in like bigger coastal urban like cities. Is like, if you're somewhere where there's not a lot of clubs and you're always traveling, like when things start to open up, like, are you going to be traveling? Like, probably not. Those clubs and festivals are probably going to book a little bit more locally, I guess. So I think that's going to be interesting. Also, for the newer producers, I think it's going to be really tough just because they're going to go with the sure bets. I think one thing that's going to be interesting is there's definitely like a connection between like the DJ producer. Like you had to have some original music to kind of tour. There's obviously exceptions, but that's like a trend we've been seeing in electronic music over the past few years. And I think with live streaming, that's going to die a little bit. People are going to fall in love with a little bit more of like the live stream personalities. Like someone mentioned that guy Suat. I don't think he's a producer, this British guy, but like he literally was like walking in a river, like DJing with this thing on his like backpack. Like he does like crazy stuff. And I think there's going to be more of a market for like the personality, someone who blew up on TikTok or social media, who DJs, who maybe doesn't have their own music. That, there's always some of those, but I think we're going to see more of those in the later, like post-COVID stage.
Yeah, you already see a lot of those in China. There are a lot of like those TikTok famous DJs, and they just get booked. And right now, especially, there's no foreign artists going into the market. They are the one who's dominating the market right now, and that really echoes with your point. Over there saying like how local acts is going to be supported by local venues way more, just because they don't want to risk transmitting any kind of pandemic-worthy diseases. So that's one thing, and so building on top of that point, I feel like it's really crucial to look into your own artistry and look into you yourself. Like where do you have advantages? Where are your fan base? Why do your fans like you? And what is your selling point in your music? And then you can tackle specific markets doing that, right? There's no right answer to this, and everybody has different experience and different upbringings and different connections. But I personally feel like this is a time to really look into yourself and see how can you differentiate yourself from everybody else. And just because music, new acts are going to be harder to break into the live touring scene and break into like a dope act, that also means that it takes extra hard work to create life-changing music that will eventually change the status quo right now. So I'm very excited to see new talents, coming up with some crazy innovative music, just because it's so hard to break out, and it just takes that one genius to change what it is right now.
I want to sprinkle some optimism on this one a little bit. I feel like you guys are all like, man, when we come back, things are going to be rough, and they will. I appreciate that point a lot. But here's some good news. The fans obviously will be super hungry to come back. Goes without saying. But secondly, like to get those live show bookings, like there's so many non-traditional ways to get a good show booking or a festival booking for that matter too. Like spend this time to network. Like, think about that for a second. You're spending a lot of time making art, making opportunities, but like, you know, a lot of what happens in this industry is just the people you know hooking you up with stuff because they like you. Like, you can DM people who you think have like cool management companies and like prove that you're a cool person to work with, and maybe a relationship forms. Like, this is COVID. Like, people are on their phones, they'll read your messages. Just like, you got to be clever with it, offer some value. And I'm mostly speaking to like smaller artists who maybe don't have connections. Like, spend time making connections. It's hard. Message people on LinkedIn. It's hard, but like, you message 100 people, you'll probably get 5 replies. And like, you know, maybe one of those replies books the lineup at festival XYZ, you know, like, and that festival comes back in 2021, and now you're opening because he wants to help you get bigger. Like, there's just so many back doors to opportunities. Like, just don't get stuck in the like, oh, Live Nation is being mean to artists right now. Like, yeah, they have so much power right now, and they're gonna do that. So like, take that into account and like go around it however you think you can.
To add to your thoughts, there's definitely going to be plenty of positivity. I mean, one thing's for sure is that the minute these clubs can open legitimately and stay open, they're going to be calling us and asking us which acts we have that can play this weekend, you know, in days. And unlike a rock band or a traditional touring artist that needs months, you know, a year to plan a tour, our acts, you know, like Tyler and Johan, they could jump on a plane the same day and get to the event. So I think the electronic community will be one of the first of the genres within the music industry community to you know, get back to work in a sense. So there's going to be a lot of positivity there, and you just know that the younger audience, the 18 to 40-year-old, whatever the audience is for the electronic community, they're ready to go out now. If there was a warehouse party in LA that was promoted, it would probably sell it in a minute, you know? So, I mean, we're seeing that with some of the shows that are going on sale in this kind of crazy time. You know, we had an artist play a day with a day notice in Orlando, and it sold out, you know, so for a club show. So, I mean, the interest to go out and see shows, talent is nothing's changed. It's just, there's going to be a time period where the comfort level of going out, it needs to get there, or if people will have certain funds. But I think the community within the electronic community fans, they have a little more, they're not so concerned. And I think we're going to see a correction quickly whenever that happens. There's definitely light at the end of the tunnel whenever it is.
Yeah.
Thanks, David.
Quickly echo what Jack said. I think also right now for any like younger artist, or not necessarily younger, but just like a newer artist, this is not only the best time to network with like industry professionals, it's the best time to network with other bigger artists. I have never seen a time where so many artists have been communicating with like their fans, just like via these new platforms like Discord and Twitch. So like, if you have like talent, if you have like a song and you want to get it to a big artist, like now's the best time. There's so many places you can like send music. All these producers are doing like demo reviews on Twitch and feedback and things like that. So it's a lot easier to get your name out there in the digital community and like be heard, as opposed to before where like, you know, maybe those artists weren't really checking their DMs like that, or weren't engaging their fans as much as they are now.
Absolutely. It's definitely some silver linings. All right, quick pitch before we go out. Once again, this was produced by theartistpath.com. If any of you are watching this and are looking at making some of those connections, or maybe breaking the ice and getting comfortable with speaking with some industry professionals like our awesome panelists, Tyler and Johan are on the Artist Path. You can book a session with them, and they'll help you with your production project, give you some feedback, maybe some sage advice, some cool stories, things like that. We also have agents, managers, marketing specialists, a lawyer on there, and some promoters. So if you're just wondering how to break in, have any industry questions, there's a bunch of people that are happy to meet with you and answer them. I want to thank you guys, especially. These answers were just terrific. Hopefully our crowd gets a lot of value out of it. I know I did. Once again, Dave Gordoni, if you're if you're a young artist, find a way to submit your music to him, and he might rep you one day when help you get famous. He's
Go knock on his door.
Yeah,
go,
right.
Go find his address.
Blow up his DMs. Yeah, he's at United Talent Agency. Jack Preis, marketing specialist, working with some of the most amazing acts and festivals out there. Thank you so much for your input and those numbers from behind the scenes. And to our artists, Tyler and Johan, if you're bigger artists and want to work with them, hopefully you guys get some collaborations. If you want to talk to them and get some advice, if you're on your way up, book them on the artist path. And everybody, no matter who you are, should go and listen to their music on repeat all day and all night. All right. Thank you so much, guys. This was terrific for our first panel. And that's it. Everyone at home, stay safe, wear a mask, look out for each other, be healthy, and we'll see you all out there in the music scene sooner than later. All right?
Much love.
Thanks,
Bye,
guys.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, man. It was a lot of fun.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Lennon.
You guys killed it.